Welcome to a cinematic journey through time, innovation, and emotion. A story where steel, speed, and human ambition merge into something timeless. A story designed not only to inspire but also to immerse you in the English language through one of the most legendary companies ever created. Because some brands are not simply businesses. They are living philosophies, and Porsche is one of them. A name that does not shout but resonates, a symbol of precision, discipline, and passion that has traveled through decades without losing its soul. And as the camera moves slowly through dark, elegant frames, metallic reflections gliding across polished surfaces, a calm, confident voice begins to speak, inviting you into a world where engineering is not just calculation but emotion, where movement is not only physical but spiritual, and where every curve, every sound, every decision carries meaning. This is the story of Porsche, a brand where engineering meets emotion, where purpose defines performance, and where the pursuit of perfection becomes a way of life. The story begins in early 20th century Europe, a continent shaped by invention, uncertainty, and relentless curiosity. The screen fades into black and white visuals of narrow streets, workshops filled with tools, drafting tables covered in sketches, and engines resting like mechanical hearts waiting to beat. And at the center of this world stands Ferdinand Porsche, a man driven not by fame but by function, not by luxury but by efficiency, a visionary engineer whose obsession with mechanics and motion defined his life. Long before the Porsche name would become synonymous with sports cars, Ferdinand Porsche believed that machines should serve purpose with elegance, that power without control was meaningless, and that true innovation required discipline, patience, and courage. He worked with electricity, engines, and vehicles in an era when automobiles were still finding their identity, and through countless experiments and failures, he developed a philosophy that would later shape an entire brand, the belief that a car should not simply transport a person from one place to another but should communicate with the driver, respond like a living organism, and create a connection between human and machine. This idea, radical at the time, would become the foundation of Porsche's DNA. As the world changed through war and recovery, the story transitions into post-war Germany, a nation rebuilding itself from ruins, searching for identity and direction. And in this environment, a small, lightweight sports car emerged, the Porsche 356, born not from excess but from necessity, designed with simplicity, balance, and efficiency in mind. Its form followed function, its weight was minimized, its handling precise, and even in its modest power there was character. The 356 was not loud, not aggressive, but it was honest, and it introduced a philosophy that would define Porsche forever. The idea that driving pleasure comes from harmony, not brute force, from balance, not chaos. And as the camera glides over archival footage of winding roads and smiling drivers, it becomes clear that this car was more than a product. It was a statement, a quiet declaration that Porsche was building something different. Then comes a moment that changes everything, the birth of the Porsche 911. A car that would become one of the most recognizable silhouettes in automotive history. When it was first introduced, its rear-engine layout was considered risky, even irrational. Placing the engine behind the rear axle went against conventional wisdom. Yet Porsche embraced this challenge, turning perceived weakness into defining strength. The 911 evolved not through radical redesigns but through careful refinement, year after year, decade after decade. Its shape remained familiar, almost timeless, while its technology advanced beneath the surface. This was evolution, not revolution, and it reflected a deep respect for heritage. Close-up shots reveal the smooth curve of the roofline, the round headlights, the unmistakable rear profile, and the sound of the engine. A voice that speaks to enthusiasts across generations. The 911 was not just a car. It was a philosophy made visible, a reminder that true identity does not need to change to remain relevant. Racing soon became the proving ground for Porsche's ideas, as the brand entered motorsport not for spectacle but for learning. Racetracks transformed into laboratories, endurance races into experiments, and every victory or failure into data. From Le Mans to countless circuits around the world, Porsche tested its limits, pushing engines, aerodynamics, and materials to extremes. The discipline of racing demanded precision, teamwork, and relentless focus, and Porsche thrived in this environment. Engineers learned how to make cars lighter, stronger, faster, and more reliable, and these lessons flowed directly into road cars, blurring the line between competition and everyday driving. Slow-motion shots capture pit stops, roaring engines, focused eyes behind helmets, and the raw intensity of endurance racing, emphasizing that for Porsche, motorsport was never just about winning trophies. It was about understanding performance at its deepest level, where speed becomes science and engineering becomes art. Design at Porsche has always followed a unique philosophy, one that values continuity over trends, clarity over decoration, and emotion through precision. In minimalist studios filled with soft light and rotating models, designers refine shapes not to impress but to endure. The goal is not to shock but to resonate, which is why a Porsche from decades ago can still feel modern today. Every line serves a function, every proportion has purpose, and every detail reflects a dialogue between form and motion, the sound of a door closing, the feedback through the steering wheel, the balance of the chassis. These elements create an experience that cannot be reduced to numbers alone. It is a feeling, and Porsche understands that feeling is the ultimate luxury. Yet the journey has never been without challenges, as global crises, changing markets, and financial pressure forced Porsche to confront difficult decisions. There were moments when tradition alone was not enough, when adaptation became necessary for survival, and this led to bold moves that surprised the world. The introduction of the Cayenne marked a turning point, a sports car brand entering the SUV segment, a decision met with skepticism and criticism, but it proved that Porsche could expand without losing its identity. The Cayenne carried the brand's DNA into a new form, combining practicality with performance, and it secured financial stability that allowed Porsche to continue innovating. Later, the Panamera further challenged expectations, blending luxury, space, and driving dynamics, demonstrating that risk, when guided by clear values, can become opportunity. As the world moved towards sustainability and electrification, Porsche once again faced a defining moment: how to embrace the future without abandoning the past. The answer arrived in the form of the Taycan, an all-electric sports car that refused to compromise on performance or emotion. Futuristic factories, digital dashboards, and silent acceleration filled the screen, but beneath the technology remained the same philosophy: balance, control, and connection. The Taycan proved that electric power could still deliver a Porsche experience, redefining speed not through noise but through instant response, sustainability not as limitation but as evolution. And as the camera sweeps through modern production lines and glowing cityscapes, it becomes clear that Porsche is not chasing the future. It is shaping it on its own terms. Beyond engineering and design, Porsche's impact extends into culture, identity, and personal meaning. On city streets, mountain roads, and racetracks, Porsche drivers form a global community connected by shared values. Collectors preserve history, daily drivers live the experience, and racing fans celebrate heritage. The brand represents ambition without arrogance, precision without coldness, and freedom without chaos. Owning or driving a Porsche is not about status alone. It is about alignment. With a mindset, a belief in doing things the right way, even when it is harder, even when it takes longer. As the documentary approaches its conclusion, the pace slows, the music softens, and the visuals turn poetic. A Porsche moves along an empty road toward the horizon as the sun sets, light reflecting off its surface like time itself passing gently by, and a final message appears on screen. Simple, bold, and true. Performance is not speed. Performance is purpose. These words capture the essence of everything that came before, reminding us that Porsche has never been about being the fastest for the sake of speed, but about meaningful performance, driven by vision, discipline, and emotion. And as the screen fades to black, the voice returns one last time, leaving us with the understanding that Porsche remains a timeless balance between tradition and innovation. A living example of how staying true to purpose allows a brand, like a person, to move forward without losing itself. And this is not just the story of a car company. It is a story of human ambition, precision, and the enduring power of purpose.